Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is Mr. Dogbo333, and welcome back to the new campaign trail. Now, what was even the last time we did new campaign trail? It's been a while. Let me pull up my video dashboard and figure out when that was. Was it really? Things That Never Were? God, it's been a while. Last time we were hopped in with Things That Never Were and campaigned as or against one Howard Hughes, despite the fact that Howard Hughes was not actually running for president and wasn't really there. You can potentially make some parallels with what we're about to do today with that, but I'm a little bit too tired and lazy to articulate that one right now. But, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you all to the Divided States of America. This is the brand new 2024 mod that just dropped a couple days ago by the one, the only, Astronomical, as well as some other cool people here. Shout out to all of them. Oh, thank you. Guys, he's thanking me right now. Look at that. I feel so loved. So, this is Divided States of America. America is a country scarred by COVID, fiscally insecure from rising inflation, and polarized by Trump. It has been in a crisis for the past decade or so, and there's no sign of its ending. President Joe Biden was elected after promises to return the country to normalcy. Now, doubts have festered that he may not be able to fulfill the core promise of his campaign. Failures in Afghanistan and economic woes have sent his approvals into a death spiral, the clock ticking before another election, possibly the final one. Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump left Washington as a pariah in 2021 and has become more authoritarian and extremist than ever. As he prepares a comeback seeking revenge and retribution, many on both sides believe that American democracy and the identity of the nation is on the line and the ballot. So we're going to be hopping in as the man, the myth, the Dark Lord himself, Joseph Robinette Biden, who's from the state of delusion, which is, I think, what you'd have to be in order to support the state of Delaware existing. Bit of a hot take. It should be ice cold, though. Delaware is such a quintessentially mid-state, if you ask me. But anyway, his role as President of the United States and King Ozymandias. About once every 5 to 10 years, Joe Biden is swept away by the waves of change. His political obituary is published, and Americans seem ready to move on. But every single time, this proves premature. His head pops through the surface downstream, coughing and sputtering, but very much alive. Whether he pulls through in the greatest political fight of his life has yet to be seen. Biden is a political moderate, striking a liberal populist tone on economic and cultural issues while pivoting to the right on trade and immigration. If he can read the pulse of the country and meet the moment, he might be able to secure himself a second term, but if something, whether it be Trump, the economy, or some foreign crisis, catches him off guard, it might do him in for good. So we're going to do default winner take all and hop on in. Good thing we have it muted, because there's a lot of current music, and a lot of it would very much give me copyright strike. So first we're going to take a step back. We have some campaign data. Kind of W slash Things That Never Were slash All the Way-esque. I know I still need to play All the Way. I was recording it, and then I accidentally doxed myself pulling something up, so I had to delete that video. But so here's what we're looking at right now. We have zero legislative and our policy successes. The American people seem to have a moderate amount of trust in us. The progressives seem to have low opinions of us. The situation in the Middle East is quieter today than it has been in 2 decades. Imagine that. And then we have a State of the Union. So Speaker of the House currently is Nancy Pelosi, tormented Trump for 2 years, eager to shepherd our agenda. Leading opponent is Donald Trump, the runner-up in 2020, though he is too egotistical to ever admit that. And then we have a State of the Union. So Speaker of the House currently is Nancy Pelosi, tormented Trump for 2 years, eager to shepherd our agenda. Leading opponent is Donald Trump, the runner-up in 2020, though he is too egotistical to ever admit that. The factional opposition is virtually none. Keep this up, and who knows what's possible. Keep in mind a coalition can fall apart early. And the U.S. Attorney General right now is Jeffrey A. Rosen. Trump's executive government remains a revolving door. Well, we're going to go ahead and hop in and figure out who's going to replace him. Let's take a step back. You, Mr. Biden, have just won the 2020 presidential election. You're staring at a list of potential appointments for Attorney General. The way Trump has run the Justice Department, such a list is giving you some pause. It's crucial more than ever to select someone capable of restoring the rule of law. The only question is who. Well, Doug Jones is a fantastic man. His legal battles prosecuting the Birmingham church bombers and his term as senator is an admirable portfolio. He just lost a re-election in a pretty red state. Let's get him on board. Jones managed to outrun you by multiple points. You nominate him shortly after the fallout of the January 6th insurrection, and you wonder if the Republicans will ever win again. Although coattails were very narrow, with a tied Senate and a 5-seat majority in the House, it is crucial that you hit the ground running in 2021 by getting your agenda through. You propose the American Rescues, Jobs, and Families Plan to help the nation recover from the worst of the COVID-19 pandemic, but opposition from Manchin and Sinema seems to put the bill at risk. What's the game plan here? Look, if Manchin and Sinema are willing to lay the cards out now, we will too. There's no point in spending a year fighting over this. Let's get everything we can agree to pass and sign before the end of the year. Negotiations go on, but are continuous. Republicans are able to do well in the 2021 elections, both due to the economy and perception over some of your failures, most notably Afghanistan. So we're going to split our attention between Ohio and Alaska, maybe South Carolina. I'm still debating that. I'll send our first visit to Alaska. With the midterms coming up and the fallout of Dobbs versus Jackson's Supreme Court decision still visible, there's a desire for Democrats to use their remaining political capital to pass some kind of a continuation of your agenda. You managed to put Manchin and Sinema into a position quite favorable for yourself, as Democratic odds in the midterms have increased. Your legislative requests look far more reasonable. How will you capitalize on this? Well, let Schumer and Kane hammer a deal out. They know Manchin far better than I do, and I imagine they could get a pretty good deal out of all this at the end of the day. Patience is a virtue. Manchin delivers you an only slightly trimmed down version of the Build Back Better, titled the Inflation Reduction Act. As election night 2022 comes and goes, the so-called red wave appears to be nothing more than a ripple in the ocean. After a far better term than expected, the 118th U.S. Congress has been sworn in, but not necessarily a new speaker, as Kevin McCarthy has failed to secure the gavel on the first ballot. As a second vote starts, the same Republicans start to defect. It dawns on you in your inner circle that this may take a long time. Will you intervene in House proceedings or let this play out? Well, I'm gonna conference directly with the Democratic caucus as soon as possible and give them the following instructions. Hold the line at all costs. There is a possibility that, if given enough Republican abstains, Hakeem Jeffries could become your next speaker. Your message to them is basically the same thing they were already hearing from Jeffries and Pelosi, so it doesn't really change much. A battered McCarthy emerges, finally, as speaker, after 15 ballots, stretched thin with promises to the most extreme elements of his caucus. Next up, we'll do Ohio, State of the Union. So, right now the speaker is Kevin McCarthy. Has yearned for decades for this position, willing to risk it all for a chance to wield the gavel. Is it worth it, though? We'll wait and see. And we also have Doug Jones, Attorney General, single-handedly keeping the mean IQ of Alabama above 80, which isn't an easy task. Damn. The U.S. government has just hit its debt ceiling, triggering a debt ceiling crisis. House Republicans will not pass an increase unless you agree to cut spending. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has enacted extraordinary measures, giving you and Congress a few months to resolve this until the U.S. defaults on its obligations. What action will you take? Well, McCarthy wants to avoid a default as much as we do. We can work this out. The Limit, Save, Grow Act was unacceptable, but it was a good start. We can use bestowed loan repayment moratorium, the IRS funding from the IRA, and SNAP benefits such as bargaining chips. Surprisingly, the negotiations go well, and the spending cuts you end up agreeing to are relatively minor. The final debt ceiling, the Fiscal Responsibility Act, is hailed as a victory for you, further enraging the right flank of the McCarthy caucus. Well, look at that. Campaign data. We got some decent policy successes, and people have a moderate amount of trust in us. Although voters within your party seem less than enthused, it is a surprise to absolutely no one that you've been gearing up for a second term. The data is set, the platform is prepared, and the apparatus is ready. The answer is obvious. Here's obvious. Are you going to do it? Across the country, MAGA extremists are lining up to take on those bedrock freedoms, cutting Social Security that you've paid for your entire life while cutting taxes for the very wealthy, dictating what healthcare decisions women can make, banning books, and telling people who they can love, all while making it more difficult for you to be able to vote. When I ran for president 4 years ago, I said we were in a battle for the soul of America, and we still are. I'm announcing my intention to seek re-election as president of the United States of America. Despite poor approvals, any incumbent would dream of replicating that midterm performance you just pulled off. This is the most expected outcome, though some seem to have concern about your age. What? They're crazy. Let's go to Ohio. Last year, your administration invoked the HEROES Act in your latest attempt to cancel student loan debt without the approval of Congress. In response, a coalition of Republican states sued your administration on the grounds that this violated separation of powers and the Administrative Procedures Act. The Supreme Court just ruled in their favor, rendering your debt cancellation program unconstitutional. How will you respond? Well, I don't think it's a good look for us to go around finding these legal loopholes allowing us to forgive exorbitant amounts of student loan debt without the approval of Congress. We're going to use this to rally young voters around our cause, win back Congress in 2024, and do it the right way. Some people are disappointed that you've let the Republicans win this battle, but student loan debt forgiveness is a surefire way to pump out you've turned out in the next elections. How are we doing on the campaign data? Progressives have no thoughts on us, positive or negative. Oh, while I'm here, I might as well point out the all these various state issues, because we got some unique ones. We have economics, a wide umbrella of economic issues, including inflation, unemployment, taxes, and minimum wage. Vibes. America's a country that picks its leader entirely on vibes. Yeah, they're not wrong. Capitulation. How much of a state willing to give up America's status and our allies abroad? Woke. How much of a state caters to the woke mob and the culture wars? And finally, immigration. The civil rights issue of our time, besides, of course, all of the other civil rights issues. So we have economics, we have Malayism, bad vibes, Chamberlain, neutral, and moderate. Saying Florida is neutral on woke is interesting. We have fascistic immigration, Churchill, Malayism, anti-woke, Chamberlain, anarcho-capitalism, Malayism, Peronism, leftism, interventionism. We had some funny stuff here. We have some Halifax stuff as well. Very, very interesting. Anyway, for well over a year now, the war in Ukraine has continued with no end in sight. They probably wouldn't have made it this far if you hadn't marshaled support for them internationally, domestically, lobbying for extensive foreign aid. Despite the Wagner scare last month, Russia is still marching on Ukraine, and President Zelensky is once again asking for your financial support. He is once again asking for your financial support. What will you send them? $800 million is reasonable. That includes, of course, advanced air defense systems, ammunition, armored vehicles, and extensive economic aid. Obviously, this is part of a broader national effort, and we're going to have oversight and make sure these resources are utilized effectively. It takes a little bit of maneuvering on Capitol Hill, but you win the battle. Congress passes the aid package by bipartisan majorities. Zelensky is thankful, and Ukraine is able to successfully repeal Russia's advances over the summer. Well, there we go. I'm gonna risk a visit to South Carolina. Attorney General Doug Jones and the special counsel he appointed have been hard at work, litigating a case against former President Donald Trump, specifically over his involvement in the January 6th insurrection. He's feeling good about his odds for getting Trump locked away, but there are concerns about the optics of the case. Do you have any suggestions for general strategy? Let Doug Jones keep doing what he's doing, man. There's already bipartisan special counsel at work, and I'm confident that they're handling it. With due time, Donald John Trump is found guilty of, among other things, conspiracy to defraud the United States of America. He's been sentenced to 5 years in prison, and no arrangements will be made to help him effectively be the Republican nominee. And now he's gone. The factional opposition is Dean Phillips, also known as Dean Quizzo. Some people have too much money. And then the leading opponent right now is Burgum. Let's go. How he managed to get it remains a mystery. Even he's amazed by it. How dare they slander? I'm waiting for Burgumentum still, to this day. So, you've averted a government shutdown with the help of Speaker McCarthy, who relied on Democratic votes to pass a resolution to fund the government over the vocal opposition of the Freedom Caucus hardliners. They retaliated by filing a motion to vacate, and McCarthy lost the vote, rendering the House once again speakerless. Will you issue any marching orders to House Democrats over the course of a speakership election? Look, Republicans can see the writing on the wall. The margins in 22 were tight. There's a clear consensus to govern in bipartisan fashion. Can't Jeffries hammer out some kind of deal here with my help? With enough swing district Republicans feeling they have real credibility, Mr. Jeffries is elected as Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, ushering an era of reform in the People's Chamber. Well, look at that. Alaska. Hamas has just launched a surprise assault attack on Israel, launching thousands of rockets and invading southern Israel in a massive vehicle-borne assault. Reports are coming in of brutal urban combat between IDF soldiers and Hamas terrorists, and more still are reports of horrendous crimes against Israeli civilians committed by Hamas. Your response? Oh, well, there's Nikki Haley. Trump calls her bird brain. Ignore the fact that she was in her administration. We also have Jeffries working on major bipartisan reforms to the House so they can supply Ukraine and Israel with more ammunition. Campaign data. So much of this. Progressives have low opinions of the Biden-Harris administration. I come to Israel with a single message. You are not alone. U.S. will always stand with you. These brutal attacks on civilians, they recall the worst ravages of ISIS. You know, I've heard people describe the attack on Israel as their 9/11, but for a nation the size of Israel, it was like 15 9/11s. As Israel reels from this brutal attack and prepares to go after the perpetrators, sympathy for them is at an all-time high. Just make sure this doesn't escalate into a all-out regional conflict. Well, the situation in the Middle East is now at conflict. Who would have thought it? As calls for a ceasefire deal mount internationally and domestically, Israeli troops have launched a ground invasion of the northern Gaza Strip, and the death tolls have become staggering. Many on the left are starting to try to push you towards a deal, while Speaker Jeffries cautions you that concessions will need to be provided in order to achieve a deal. What's your response? Well, I'm gonna need Jeffries' help here. Look, we've got to do a lot of diplomacy. If he can keep the house in order, I can get this done. I just need his help. Israel is taken aback, and Netanyahu accuses you of siding with Hamas. He claims that Israel will stand alone if it has to end the Hamas threat. Jeffries, meanwhile, works overtime to keep the coalition together. Well, try South Carolina. Recently, Senators Sinema and Lankford have been working on a bipartisan deal to address border security, an issue that has only grown in salience during your administration, with provisions allowing the Department of Homeland Security total authority to shut down the border after a certain amount of crossings and a mandate for detention of migrants seeking asylum. It is one of the harshest immigration deals ever proposed. Do you support this bill? Look, I'll sign this bill if it's sent to my desk, but this thing, it comes with some pretty harsh provisions I'm not comfortable publicly backing. We should ask the Speaker to allow for a vote of conscience on this matter. No whips from either party. As Speaker, Hakeem Jeffries has run the House in a bipartisan fashion, allowing for bills to be voted on and passed regardless of what party supports it. Similar coalition that's kept the budget afloat, the bill passes rather early and is signed shortly after. Well, would you look at that? How are we doing? We're leading in Ohio, close in Florida, not too far from Texas or Alaska. South Carolina is a bit of a jump, but we can maybe get there. Donald John Trump, the 45th President of the United States, was found guilty of conspiracy to defraud the United States of America. As it becomes abundantly clear that he won't be able to run for the nomination, some are wondering how you will treat the chaos on the other camp. Do you have any thoughts you wish to share? Well, first there's a drama with the speakership. Now there's all this primary drama. Republicans are pretty synonymous with chaos and dysfunction. It's not my dad's Republican Party. What we need more than ever during this economics period is stability. It's no easy feat to portray yourself as a candidate of stability after the Afghanistan withdrawal, but you're talking about the economic situation, which can only be good for you. Let's try South Carolina. Pressure by your government has been mounting rapidly on Israel for an end to the ongoing conflict. Now it appears that a new ceasefire and hostage release deal has been proposed by negotiators and Hamas networks. Is accepted in principle. Netanyahu has yet to make a definitive decision alongside his cabinet, but your advisors believe you can nudge him towards accepting, which will be your course of action. Look, Jack, forget the good cop routine. We're so close to getting a good deal hammered out, and the United States agrees with the proposal laid out. Netanyahu can either accept it with us, or he ain't black, or oppose it without us. But plain and simple. Netanyahu balks at this when you first tell him, but at this point, who else can he run to? What other world leader would accept his diplomatic signals? A trapped Netanyahu chooses to yield rather than stand alone, and ceasefire takes effect within the next few days. There we go. So, leading opponent is J.D. Vance. Soul to soul, just for the chance to be here. Hope he's making his Mima proud. Pain dire situation in the Middle East is a hopeful ceasefire. Progressives seem to have low opinions of the Biden-Harris administration. Man, we just got a peace deal. I don't know what else they would want. I don't know if Zimmad's trying to say the progressives will never be happy about anything done in the Middle East. If that's what it's trying to say, I mean, it's a bold way to look at it. Certainly. I don't know. Trump's legal troubles have put him out of the picture, at least as the nominee. Now Republicans are poised to nominate someone decades younger than both you and him, and they aren't afraid of mentioning the age difference. Former and current Republican candidates such as Haley and DeSantis have not been afraid to hit you on your age and cognitive ability to serve. How will you defend yourself? Look, it's a matter of transparency. Let's re-release my medical record, let them tear into it, and then they'll quiet down once there's nothing to poke holes into. Look, Jack, I've got a clean bill here. Oh, I didn't realize Sao Paulo was in the soundtrack. Holy shit! Look at that. It's true that there's little substance to truly say you cannot serve in these medical reports, but that won't stop Republicans from interpreting the report however they want. Your history gaps is enough to cause people to fret. Let's head over to Ohio. Donald Trump, the first former president to be convicted, now sits behind bars. His mugshot is everywhere, and he's off the trail, at least physically, for good. Trump has wasted no time in the past few months claiming that he is a victim of so-called lawfare, and it seems to be poking holes in one of your core campaign focuses, the issue democracy. It's time to focus on new issues. Look, the democracy stuff, it isn't the whole story. This campaign, it's about freedom. Look, I'm not just fighting for the right to vote, but also the freedom to get by and prosper, to give people a shot. Freedom ties everything together. voting rights, abortion, economic fairness. Voters actually feel those freedoms in their lives. At least you hope they do. The GOP has concluded with Senator J.D. Vance accepting the nomination, who's tapped into your anger following numerous legislative wins. He's praised Donald Trump's courage to fight the system and promises to finish what Trump started, as he declares that America needs a new generation of fighters. The camera lingers as the crowd chants, "Vance! Vance! Vance!" As your team watches the question is clear: how do you define the race before he does? Well, this guy... Isn't he one of those far-right folks? He's just weird. Wasn't he in group chats on the Twitter? Look, you can count on me not to anyway, to surprise him most, it turns out Vance was in some Twitter group chats. It's complicated the rollout of this campaign significantly. Let's go to Ohio. With the Republican convention now final and J.D. Vance's nomination now final, many of your advisors think now might be a good time to reboot your campaign and formally get back on the trail. Your advisors are widely in agreement that'd be a good way to revitalize a campaign that's already been dormant until now. Is this something you're willing to do? The dark Brandon stuff, you don't think that was working? Alright, we can, look, maybe we can try some different approaches online. We can take a look at what Obama did to win his re-election. It pains you to admit that Obama might have had a point. It'll be hard to make people think you care, but maybe making people realize Vance doesn't care is a good start. Our factional opponent right now is led by Jill Stein, greatest ally of the left, Vladimir Putin, and the RNC. J.D. Vance's campaign seems to have a vision for this country. It's a wicked and terrible one. That one that'll leave America worse off, more desolate than ever, but still, it's a vision. With your formal renomination inching ever closer and a second Biden term becoming a real possibility, the question must be asked, what is your vision? What might be possible in a second Biden term? Look, we defended the social safety net after COVID. I want to build upon it. Maybe even bring back the public option. Healthcare was big in 2020, remember? We could tie that into the future that we killed Medicaid. Promising to bring back the public option is a noble goal, but it's one you won't have the votes for. You know it. Your advisors know it. Schumer knows it. Hopefully the American people don't. The DNC's arrived, and your nomination is official, but the mood in the hall feels different from 4 years ago with a quiet sense of unease. Polls against Vance are looking questionable, and some delegates still whisper doubts about your strength as a candidate. As you step to the podium, what tone does your acceptance speech carry, and how will you prove yourself to the convention and America? Look, I know people are frustrated, and I know things still feel hard, but I believe in America, and I believe in the people in this room. If we come together, if we can turn the page and build something better for everyone. A hopeful speech that could give you the emotional reset you need, but you don't exactly inspire hope in the same way someone like Obama does. Abortion rights is expected to become one of the biggest flashpoints of his campaign, and it could be a boon to your doubtful odds. Republicans have been scrambling to soften their position after voters rejected anti-abortion campaigns in 2022, with Trump declaring the issue was up to the states. The economy is still weighing heavily on voters' minds. Many advisors believe on focusing on abortion, an issue that the Vance campaign is hesitant to respond to, will be crucial in winning the election. How do you plan to respond to it? Look, the abortion issue matters, but if we make this whole campaign the whole meh. Look what I'm saying is anyway, people want to know how we're gonna fix the economy, not we did this in 2022, didn't we? Your stance on abortion transformed over the years, but some may worry that you're going back to your old ways. Why do this after pro-choice candidates easily won in 2022? Blue Ohio, that's why. We're also almost at Alaska. Look at that. We'll visit South Carolina real quick. It's been far too long that Ukraine has been fighting a war for survival as a nation. More men and women are falling to the blood-soaked fields of a steppe, yet despite it all, Ukraine is still here and still fighting. NATO, too, is still together, even if it's highly reliant on America. So, Mr. President, what case will we make to the public? A strong one, that's what. Ukraine has been a strong ally of ours since its founding. By keeping Ukraine in the fight, we have kept the fight for democracy burning bright against Putin. Europe is with us. America is with us. Don't forget it, Jack. By emphasizing the fight for democracy and strong relationships abroad, you can keep the coalition Democratic voters in your column without bleeding too many blue-collar workers, who themselves are concerned about all the money being sent over there. J.D. Vance has kicked off his campaign with a tour of the Rust Belt, calling for higher tariffs and a hardline approach to immigration that makes border states blush. If you want a chance of winning the region, you have to push back on them while you still have a chance. Look, this is just what the party needed. Well, Vance is busy up in Michigan talking protectionism. Let's hit the Sunbelt swing states. Maybe we can crack the long-time hold the GOP's had on taxes. Taxes. Democrats have been talking the talk about Texas for a long time now, and perhaps having an opponent so sycophantic about the Rust Belt is what Democrats need to walk the walk. Let's hope the gamble pays off, Joe. We're getting there. Let's head back to Ohio, though. As the election approaches, traditional discussions about your age have intensified, with some suggesting a September debate to address these concerns. Traditionally, debates are not proposed this late into the campaign, and there's no formal proposal on the table from either Vance or News Network. How would you like to address the age issue in your campaign strategy? Well, the best idea here is to lean on Harris and other circuits. They can vouch for my strength, and it shows that this campaign isn't just about me. It's about the whole team. Other circuits have stepped up hard to you. However, all this has done is make voters wonder why you need backup in order to defend your own fitness to govern and serve. The cinema Langford immigration bill is now law, marking the first major immigration legislation to pass in years. The compromise package boosts border enforcement, adds new asylum restrictions, and expands resources to key entry points. The White House is calling it a historical bipartisan achievement. Progressives are furious about the stricter enforcement measures, and immigration hardliners on the right still claim the border is wide open. With immigration polling as one of the most important issues for swing voters, how do you want to message this? We delivered the first real immigration reform in a generation, and we did it with both parties at the table. Voters deserve to know that we stepped up with all extremists in both parties want to keep the chaos going. Calling this a bipartisan win could help you with swing voters tired of gridlock, but be careful. You might be reminding progressives that they have reasons to be angry at you. We'll do Ohio. How are we doing? Progressives are still pissy. Now, what else is new? A specter is haunting America. The specter of NAFTA. All the members of both parties have entered into a more protectionist stance since its passing to try and win back voters. Trump and Sanders, Vance and Brown, Democrats and Republicans. Vance is leaning hard into tariffs of 40% or higher on Chinese goods. How should we orient ourselves in response? Since when has NAFTA been a dirty war? Let's get Bill, Hillary, and Al on the line and see if we can't drum up energy for a defense of free trade. While we're at it, let's roll back the last of the Trump tariffs and trade. Clintons and Gore are surprised, you call, but nonetheless begin to take the stump around the South and the Sun Belt. Protectionists are mortified, and free traders who cast Trump aside begin looking at your campaign with renewed interest. VB Harris has struggled with low approval ratings and lack of identity. Perhaps by design. Still, she's a capable campaigner, at least relative to yourself, and therefore it's important she gets some more spotlight with Americans. In what way would you like to utilize her, if at all? We should lean into the social media. Maybe get her on the TikToks or Instagram. Harris, well, she's more comfortable in that space, and these younger voters, you need to see her fighting for their future. This one doesn't land, as Harris's record isn't exactly a viral sensation, though some seem eager to see a face that isn't withering away. If you expect TikTok to turn this race around, though, you're kidding yourself. Yeah. We'll see, though. Despite electoral backlash, Republicans have continued to lean heavily on cultural grievances, from schools and transgender athletes to what they call woke corporations. Polling shows these issues fire up the Republican base, but they're more hit or miss with swing voters. How should your campaign address this culture war messaging? Litter boxes in schools? There's no reason to get dragged into every fake controversy they cook up. Oh, look, the more time we spend talking about their corn pop, not their culture war nonsense, the less time we spend talking about jobs, healthcare, and real life. Some Democrats are already worried you're being too cautious on culture war issues. This type of rhetoric did cost Republicans key victories on a local level back in 2023. It's been about a year since October 7th, and despite it all, the ceasefire established earlier this year seems to be standing solid, as is your polling against Arab and Palestinian Americans. With this stability in mind, are there any specific groups you'd like to extend an olive branch to? These polls, they have shown Vance doing far better with Latinos even compared to 2020. It's crazy, man. They're going to be a critical voting bloc in many of the swing states, such as Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Nevada. Let's focus on winning them over. You seem to be holding steady with Latino women nationally. Latino men are a different story, and they may be able to make the difference in the swing states. Doing outreach is a great way to start, however. Let's do South Carolina. Your advisor has been telling you about the need to get a little dirty when dealing with Vance. From his experience to his stiff nature, many Americans have worried about his character. Should we try to steer the campaign towards character issues over policy? This This Vance guy, the youth with their dark Brandons have been making a lot of jokes about couches. Maybe we can play into that. Say he looks about as stiff as a chair and his palsies are as soft as a couch. Dark Brandonistas across the country rejoice as you throw an affable wink. Since the president has decided to play into the rumors, I'll address them, Vance fumes. No, I did not do anything inappropriate with any furniture. This is goddamn ridiculous. Got him. Oh, look at that. It's glorious. We're winning in 3 of these 4 states. Well, 1, 2, 3. 4 of the 5 states I've been looking at. Yeah, visit Florida. Was brain rotted by his crusade with what he calls the woke mind virus. Elon Musk has made his personal mission to ensure that you are ousted in November, whatever financial cost is incurred. Musk's America PAC has spent over $100 million. This money has been spent on lotteries for referring swing state voters and ground game canvassing. While there have been some missteps, by and large, Musk's big money seems to be having an effect on the polls. You have to counteract it, but how? Listen, Fat. This stuff is a bunch of malarkey. Bullshit. How is it even legal? I want one of our allies to jump on this case. Sue the hell out of us lying dog-faced pony soldier pack. A few lawsuits are filed in Michigan and Arizona. One of the judges grants an order halting virtually all operations of the American PAC. Some of the damage is still done, but stopping the bleeding quickly is a good idea. We're still holding strong. I'm going to try South Carolina this next roundabout. With the race fully underway, Republican messaging has only grown more inflammatory. Right-wing Republicans and allies of J.D. Vance seem to be talking about the destruction of America as if you're able to win again, it's all they play on Fox, OANN, and Newsmax all day. Feels awfully similar to the crap Trump was saying back in 2020. Some advisors want you to respond directly, while others warn that the fighting over their terms could backfire. How do you want to handle it? Look, we can't lose. We have to keep our eyes on the prize. No losing sight of what's important in this election. J.D. Vance, he can fearmonger, but we have to focus on the economy, getting people opportunities. People, they're angry. We can't lose. Even if some voters might like the policy-minded closing, you're not doing much to counter the rhetoric being used by GOP operatives that lurk in their sewers. We're still holding tight. Mr. President, we found a way to deal Vance a finishing blow. If we separate him from the MAGA base, we can tear this coalition apart at the seams. The question is less of an if and more of a how. MAGA people are honestly just a bunch of bullies. Vance is a bit of a weird fella, and it's awkward where Trump was blustering. Let's keep with the Kamala strategy. Just call the guy weird. Your advisors all agree to the plan. The Democratic apparatus starts calling Vance weird across the board. Well, I won't couch this in flowery language, your running-mate remarks. Vance is just a weird guy. You're not a fan, but if it works. Let's do South Carolina. We could hold tight, I believe. We're ahead in all the margins in all these other states, so we can take a bit of a gamble. The final days of a campaign are here, and your team is finalizing your last stop before Election Day. This visit will get heavy media coverage and set the tone for your closing arguments against J.D. Vance. Feels like the world is stopping place. Where do you want to go? None of these are particularly close. I guess Nevada's the closest, so we'll go there to help tough up the margins. Arizona and Nevada, man, look. There's a ton of critical votes. Latino voters and independents seem to be on the fence. We can't have them slip. He spent the final few days campaigning before returning home to the White House. Somehow, this feels more stressful than any foreign spat or domestic crisis. Best of luck, Mr. President. Election has arrived. Settle in and wait for the returns, however long it may take. Best of luck. So Kentucky is in solid red, not a surprise. Not the Yang Gang turn against us. Indiana. Yeah. Vermont. Virginia. Pretty big margins in Virginia. Georgia, 12-point victory in Georgia. That's pretty impressive. North Carolina, 14 points, not bad. Ah, damn. 5 points in South Carolina. I got it closer in my practice game, like the 2-point divide. Hopefully this won't bode poorly for the other swing states. We got Minnesota. We got Florida. 4-point victory, but we still got Florida. There we go. This is what the media didn't want you to know about the odds of Dark Brandon. We got Lexus. It's all down to Florida and Ohio. Damn it. Okay, it's going to be all down to Alaska. We'll see if my South Carolina gambit didn't pay off. How badly will it cost us? Come on, Ohio. Yeah! Look at that. 408 to 130. I'll take that. I should have scrapped the South Carolina visits and put them all into Alaska. But here we go. Excellent song choice, by the way, for the end of this. It was a brilliant one. I almost want to sabotage the monetization just to keep the audio in on this video. I get claimed. The problem is it might mute this section of the VOD. Or the whole VOD itself, possibly. I'll just have to do it. Within the fraying body of an octogenarian Irishman lay a mind-addled mind, alight with rapture. It was inconceivable. The Oval Office, already wrapped in a thin silence of anticipation of oblivion at the hands of the enemy, now found itself drowning in as the night unfolded. The results which trickled onto the small television screen, tucked neat and obscure in the corner of the room, as if to shelter the president from his oncoming annihilation, had betrayed the premonitions of the president's inner circle. They did not speak. They cannot speak. Even the pundits which briefly flashed onto display between ballot drops remained mum or offered unconvincing reassurances of a blue mirage which only grew louder as the magnitude of the victory they were witnessing became apparent. It was impossible. Unfathomable, even. Though more divided than ever, the American people seemed united by a single, unshakable conviction that this outcome was impossible. All except one. The president watched as his loyalists stilled, one by one, as what they were witnessing finally became too much to deny. Their faces had turned ashen white. Their gazes had been firmly fixed earthwards to avoid his own, but it did not faze him. The intransigence of his underlings had meant nothing. Their incompetence laid bare as the levee-broken states began to be called. When Blitzer, that rodent, murmured about something about Kentucky being still too close to call, it all finally began clicking into place. The mainstream media was quick to change its tune, and yet eons too late. Fox published a hailstorm of quickly rescinded, pre-written, pre-scheduled eulogies alongside hastily scribbled together reports of unexpected strength in deep red stage, which quickly morphed into descriptions of a massacre. Senator Vance mounted the stage in the moments before the first poll closures to deliver a resounding declaration of victory, of war against the liberal establishment. He began sliding off script as his staffers issue him increasingly concerning reports of devastating squealings across Appalachia. As the results pour over the first 5 minutes, began sliding into accusations of voter fraud by 10. The tears begin flowing by minute 15, and his mascara starts running down his ruddy cheeks. CNN scrambles to rework its programming as the night ticks on. The next Carter becomes the next Truman, then the next Obama, then the next Roosevelt. They say Joe Biden is paralyzed, his body broken. They say Joe Biden is a sphinx, quiet, secretive. They say Joe Biden is Amtrak Joe, Scranton boy, hero of the working man. They say Joe Biden is a dead man walking, come alive, another echo of his predecessor's once certain defeat in 1936. They say Joe Biden is that man in the White House once more. They say Joseph Robinette Biden is nothing less than another FDR. Perhaps he is. Perhaps he is more. His gaze transits the Oval Office, daring the small gaggle of supposed associates to break in their monk-like silence and recognize the victory unfolding before them. He knows what is to be done. He alone knows the day and the hour and the minute and the second of the coming of man. And he knows that it is now. He knows there shall be one in the bed and one in the field, and one of 2 women grinding grain in the mill. His enemies have shown their faces now, and he knows he shall cut them asunder. He knows there will be weeping and the gnashing of teeth, and he awaits it with glee. Nothing can stop them now. And within the fraying body of the Irish octogenarian lay a mind convinced that it was God. The union membership rates, the percentage of wage and salary workers who were members of unions, was 14.2% in 2027, showing continuation in the sharp rise in the union membership rate since 2024. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported today. The number of wage and salary workers belonging to unions at 20.5 million also showed strong signs of growth. In 1983, the first year for which comparable data are available, the union membership rate was 20.1%, and there were 17.7 million union members. These data on union memberships are collected as part of the Current Population Survey, CPS, a monthly sample survey of about 60,000 eligible households that obtains information on employment and unemployment among the nation's national non-institutional population age 16 and over. For further information, see the technical notes in this new release. Highlights from 2027 data. The union membership rate of public sector workers, 40.3%, continues to be significantly higher than the rate of private sector workers, 11.5%, see Table 3. The highest unionization rates among workers in education, training, and library occupations, 50.3%, and protective service occupations, 43.6%. Women have, for the first time since we've collected gender-segregated data, achieved a higher rate of unionization, 15.3%, than men, 13.4%. Black workers remain more likely to be union members than white, Asian, Hispanic workers, see Table 1. Non-union workers had median weekly earnings that were 85% of earnings for workers who were union members, 1138 versus 1337. The comparisons of earnings in this news release are on a broad level and do not control for many factors that can be important in explaining earnings differences, see Table 2. Among states, Ohio Hawaii, and New York had the highest union membership rates, 5.4%, 30%, 23.3% respectively. The lowest rates were North Carolina, 3.3%, South Dakota, 4.6%, and South Carolina, 5.1%. See Table 5 and Chart 1. Well, that's an interesting news release for the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Look at that. The Book of Revelations dismissed by former Biden administration officials. Former officials who worked closely with Biden have come out in recent days following the release of the Book of Revelations by Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson, claiming that the book's contents were largely inaccurate in portraying the situation involving the former president's well-being during his second and incomplete term. The book, encapsulating the escalating political and constitutional crisis that led to Vice President Kamala Harris invoking the 25th Amendment less than 2 years ago, has received praise from critics, but those still loyal to their departed commander-in-chief seem to be eager to discredit the contents of the book. For example, Chapter 3 of the book explains that the decision to have a 2026 State of the Union given to Congress via letter was a decision that Biden's allies agreed to upon to prevent further question of Biden's cognitive abilities. Jake Sullivan, in a statement, however, dismissed this and claimed that Biden came to the decision on his own terms, largely in order to allow him to continue his work regarding solving the foreign policy crisis in Ukraine and Israel. Likewise, John Podesta called it asinine that the book made the claim that Harris had first brought up Biden resigning in June 2026, months before the 2026 midterms, over fears that Republicans would wipe out Democrats nationally, instead claiming that Harris's decision to oust Biden in October 2026 was a sudden, cynical turnaround that came out of nowhere. Jill Biden, the widow of the former president who passed in December 2026, just weeks after his 84th birthday and months after his removal as president of the United States, has remained quiet about the book. However, Biden's family and estate have said little to confirm or deny the contents of the book. A link to purchase the Book of Revelations along with a summary can be found below. The Book of Revelations, an instant New York Times #1 bestseller by Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson, attempts to weave together the story of an administration that limped to the finish line in 2024 elections through sheltering their candidate and the consequences of its action. As the biblical Book of Revelations showed an unveiling of the year of his fate, the Book of Revelations attempts to show a White House that slowly had its dysfunctional nature unveiled to a nation in horror. Starting with the expedited re-inauguration of Biden, the book tells the story of a White House slowly attempting to hide itself from the public, only for those same actions to cause more and more seals to be opened, bringing about the destruction and downfall of the Biden administration. Just as the beast awakened by the 7 seals were given more authority to roam the earth, those enabled by Biden and who enabled Biden were given authority over his administration, attempting to solidify their control against Vice President Harris and her allies, only became more and more emboldened to oust Biden. We have an incurable malady. Hope. Hope in liberation and independence. Hope in a normal life where we are neither heroes nor victims. Hope that our children will go safely to their school. Hope that a pregnant woman will give birth to a living baby at the hospital and not a dead child in front of a military checkpoint. Hope that our poets will see the beauty of the color red in the roses rather than blood. Hope that this land will take up its original name, the land of love and peace. Mahmoud Darwish was a Palestinian poet and author. He's regarded as one of the most significant poets in modern Palestinian history. Among other things, in 1988, he wrote the Palestinian Declaration of Independence, which was ratified by a Palestinian Liberation Organization. He passed away in 2008 from complications following a heart surgery. The short poem was written in 2002. The 2028 election was thrown off the rails as former President Donald Trump was arrested and sentenced to time in prison. Thanks to a last-minute push by Donald Trump Jr., Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio was able to secure the Republican nomination as the youngest Republican candidate ever nominated at 39 years of age, contrasting well with Biden's age. Biden has been struggling in the polls for a while, but some advisors believe that this crisis has changed the dynamics of the election, perhaps to his benefit. Can Biden turn things around? Can J.D. Vance rebuild the Trump coalition from 2016? Or even expand upon it? Well, we just found that out, didn't we? Let's do the results by state. Closest states. Ohio. Only a margin of 8,000 votes in Ohio. Look at that. Alaska. 5,000 votes. bit less in the grand scheme of things, but not bad. Texas, 400, about 300,000. Florida, 450,000. Nebraska's first. Look at that. We won Nebraska's first. We won Maine second, too. Wow. Let's see. Highest buying percent. DC makes sense. Maryland. Maine's first. Not surprised by any of that. How about Vance? Nebraska's third. West Virginia. Wyoming. Nothing too surprising here. How's Yang percentage? I'm curious about that. Vermont. North Dakota. Interesting. Idaho. Okay. I'm guessing it's factoring like this is like all the third parties, center to right leaning. I guess Cornell and the others are going to be like the more left wing ones, I'm guessing. So this probably factors in like libertarians and all that. Okay. So this is it. Further reading, we have The End of History, G and X by Kendrick Lamar, The Epstein List, and The Diddy List, which redirects to everyone who endorsed Donald Trump. Look at that. Well, this was a lot of fun. Shout out to Astronomical for for making this mod. I enjoy it. I think it's a lot of fun. For what they want, he had envisioned and what the team ended up doing, I think it worked out pretty well. I would appreciate some more options at the end to try to EV max about stuff like Ohio, Florida, maybe South Carolina. South Carolina might be a bit of a stretch. Just some EV maxing would be a little more fun. But I like the style. The Trump side is a lot of fun as well. I'm going to be hopping in, well, not necessarily the Trump side, the GOP side. I'll be hopping in probably next week to give that a shot. So stay tuned for that. You have that promise. I'll also play all the way soon, I promise. For the channel, at least. And, yeah. Excellent work here. And thank you all for watching and joining me today. I had a lot of fun. I hope you all also had a lot of fun. Thanks for watching. Like this video if you liked, dislike if you didn't. Leave any comments or feedback down in the comment section below. I read all the comments I get, and I appreciate any feedback you might have for me. Hit the sub button and notification bell to keep updated with uploads as they come out. I do a lot of new campaign trail stuff, a lot of Hearts of Iron 4 stuff, a lot of stuff in general. So if any of that interests you, go ahead and check it out. Check out my various links on the description box below. Leave in comments feedback for stuff you want to see in the future down in the comment section below as well. And yeah, I'm going to leave things there, but thank you as always for watching, my friends. My name has been Mr. Dogboat333, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye now.